What I am going to take you through today is what ourselves as DAFM staff will do once you have submitted a consignment for a certification or notified us that consignment details have been input on traces as a draft and that you've requested that we check the consignment details to ensure they are correct. The reason we're actually going through this, we're showing and demonstrating the DAFM staff portion, is because especially for products going to GB, there is an absolute necessity that we receive information from yourselves as food business operators, or else we cannot proceed with certification. I'll come to that at the end of my presentation, but just I wanted to make you all aware that the reason this is being shown to you is because in order for us as staff and staff users to do our jobs regarding certification, we require information and input from you, the food business operator user. So, as Kevin said, this is the main hub for all activities regarding export health certificates. So what would have happened is the DAFM, or the approved FBO, the food business operator, like I have done here, will have notified the veterinary office that an email, or they'll notify the veterinary office through email that a consignment has been generated for certification. We have requested that food business operators send us either, if there's one consignment, one single reference number. However, it's quite likely that there'll be multiple consignments for certification in one go because, as you would have seen, consignments can only be generated under one certificate type. Multiple commodities can be entered in one certificate. As Kevin demonstrated, there was 3 commodity codes entered for that particular health cert. However, we expect that there will be multiple different certificates needed for one entire ferry or lorry load going to the UK. So what we would request is, like I have done here, that you send us the export reference code that I have here on my email, or the draft code that I have here in my email, so that we will be notified that you as the food business operator has input this information for us to check. So as I said, this is the export reference code, but this, just because this is a training site, this is my food business operator. This is the plant to which I am assigned as a DAFM staff member. So I can, like Kevin demonstrated there moments ago, I can enter my food business operator to which I'm assigned in this consigner row, and I can bring up every consignment that has been entered by you as an FBO for certification. You'll see here, for training purposes previously, I had created drafts and I had created new ones just in case of functional breakdown. So what I would do is, as I said earlier, I would have received notification from you as a food business operator that it's this code, it's number 30, that needs certification. So when I have received that notification from you, I go into the export health search page and I click on open for this particular consignment. Now, what I'll do here is actually, I was hoping that there would be 2 documents here to show you. I can actually add it now myself, but you can see here what we have done for the purposes of this training presentation is we've drafted documents that we've titled CMRs. They're just all of the commercial information that was necessary to generate this consignment details on a singular spreadsheet or on a singular tab effectively, so that I would have all of the information necessary for, well, first of all, if you could do this document, it would enable you to very quickly copy and paste from one document onto the Traces webpage. This document that I have now on screen, everything that Kevin needed to create a consignment is on this document, and therefore everything I need to verify the details of the consignment on the Traces site is here, so I can make sure as the VI or the DAFM technical staff member that the information has been transposed correctly from this document onto the Traces site. So what I would do in this instance is I would split my screen, but first of all I'm just going to add a second document. It's not of any relevance right this moment, but it will be relevant later in my demonstration. So I am going to add it now. Just one moment. It's called a traceability document. The reasons for this will be made clear later. I'm just going to upload it to my Traces web page, because ideally what we are saying throughout all of our training is we would prefer and we would appreciate as DAFM staff users, because this is obviously a laborious process, that if all of the information is accessible to us at the outset on the Traces website, that makes our job and our life in terms of verification and the speed of which we will get through this process so much easier. Because what would be necessary, I will require all of the information that was necessary to create this consignment on the Traces website. So I would need here either through email or, as I said, as attachments, the seal numbers, the commercial documents, whatever I need to verify consignment details needs to be here as an attachment. So what we recommend is that it's done in a singular document, what we've called the CMR document, so that I can, as I said, split my screen now. So I'm going to split my screen. And what I can do as a DAFM staff user now is I can look at this CMR and I can look at the details that have been entered by you as an FBO, and I can very quickly go through the document to verify that the details have been entered correctly and may proceed for veterinary certification. So like I said, I have downloaded, I'm going to download the traceability document here. It's, as I said, it's not necessary at the moment, but it will be at a later stage, so I can save that to my PC. The first thing I will do, as I said, this references page, the only part that is relevant is this attachment box as of now, so I can then move on to the traders page. Now, as DAFM staff users, all that we will be doing is verifying that the details have been entered correctly by yourselves as food business operators. So what I will do, and like I said, the reason why we would suggest that these kind of CMR documents are done up by food business operators is that I can very quickly, at a glance, just go through the consigner, the consignee, the place of origin, place of destination, and so on and so forth to ensure all details have been entered correctly. So the consigner in box 1.1 is the food business operator which sent this consignment to me for certification. That will obviously and apparently be correct. The second box that I must check is the consignee, which is the customer in this instance, and I can see here it's general company. That is correct. I can then move on. So there was questions in the chat. The consignee may not be the same place as the place of destination. If that is the case, you can clear that from here and enter the correct place of destination in this box 1.12. However, the consignee and we on my CMR, it's not applicable. So the customer is the place of destination. So I can be confident then that both of those entries are correct. And finally, the country and region of origin of my consignment is Ireland. So that box is correct. So therefore, I can very quickly, because all of the information is available to me in one single document, be confident that the traders page has been entered correctly. I can therefore move on to the consignment page. So the consignment page is actually what will require the most checks from ourselves as DAFM staff users. I'm going to make it big again just to go through it with you. Up here, these are the nomenclature codes, as Kevin called them, the commodity codes. We will have to be aware as DAFM staff users of what commodity code is applicable to each product type that you generate. So we will go through these and check to make sure that both it's applicable to the cert, which will be obvious and apparent because it has to be, because the cert won't be generated unless it is, but more importantly, that it's applicable to the commodity or the product description down here in the identification of commodities box. So as Kevin had to show you earlier, he had to change the commodity codes. So for carcasses and domestic swine, or for the carcasses and half carcasses, it's 02, 03, 11, 10. I'll come down here and I'll look to make sure that the product description under that commodity code is all correct. I can see here that it has been done correctly, so I am confident that that's fine. I then look at 02, 03, 12, 11, hams and cuts. I come down here to make sure that only the appropriate commodity codes for hams have been selected. They have been. And then finally, I can go to shoulders and cuts thereof, which is 02, 03, 12, 19. And I can see here that for the 3 shoulders cuts, that has been entered correctly. So that means that this identification of commodities box matches what has been entered on the CMR as well, because the CMR is here. The CMR has all of this information input, and I can, as I said, I can even check the net weight too if that is necessary to ensure all information has been input correctly by you as a food business operator so that I can move on to the next stage. Although at this moment, I'm just going to take a break. This is actually, take a break from my function as a Department of Agriculture staff member, insofar as I will just briefly outline the import tool to you. So Kevin imported a file that we had generated for quickly uploading the number of commodities we have for the consignment. We have created a document. It's just, we actually created the import tool document. I'm going to bring it up on my screen here just so that you may have sight of it. The format is as outlined here on the Traces webpage. So this is the expected format. So the reason we haven't one standardized guide for the import tool is the columns will change. This row here that I'm highlighting now, I'm just going to highlight it on my screen. This row will change dependent on the consignment that you are generating. So when you are creating your CSV file, you can create it in Notepad or Excel. We've done it in Excel. I just personally find it easier to manipulate the information on Excel. But these columns, they have to be copy and pasted from the Traces web page to your Excel or CSV file writer so that you can upload the information under these or under these column headings. I'm going to bring up the CSV file that was used for the purpose of this training demonstration now in one moment. Open here as an Excel sheet. So this is how the CSV file must be formatted in Excel. Now I'll just show you here. So in column A, I have the columns and then the data headings as imported from Traces. So you go from column A to however many columns you have. They don't all go in column A. So you don't copy and paste directly from Traces into column A. You must put the columns in their correct headings. So it's, for me, it's A2, B2, C2, so on and so forth. And then after you've entered the column headings, on Excel, you must leave a space and then in the next cell down, enter data. That's so that the upload tool on Traces registers that this is one singular data set. Secondarily, then, you can see here is my identification of commodities box. This is the product description in the product description row. This is the abattoir, so that's the slaughterhouse. We received an inquiry in chat as Kevin was giving his demonstration. Is it possible to edit the CSV file so that it includes more than one slaughterhouse code or more than one manufacturing processing plant number or more than one cold store if it has processed or progressed through multiple cold stores? It absolutely is. Where you have on the CSV file the entered information, you quite simply just enter in the secondary slaughterhouse number or secondary manufacturing plant which it would go through in the appropriate column. You apply it to all the cells that are necessary for your particular consignment. You save that file then and then you upload that. Because the Traces web page is uploading the CSV file, it will take it directly from the cells here in Excel. So if I save this now, I'll show you as well. As I said, this import tool, it functions I'm doing it in Excel. However, you might want to do it in Notepad. I know that you can create CSV files in Notepad. So I'm just going to bring up, that is how the CSV file would look in Notepad using those changed approval numbers. So if you want to create the CSV file in Notepad, that's the format, that's how it's laid out. However, for ease of use, for ease of generation, I find Excel much easier because what I do then is you go File, Save As, quite simple, save it as a CSV file in Excel, and then it's ready for upload on the Traces web page. So that is the import tool at a glance. The reason we can't go into any great depth in it is because, like I said, the column headings are separate and distinct for each certificate which you will create. So I would recommend, once you get the facility on the Traces web page to create these consignments 2 GB, that you familiarize yourself not only with the commodity codes that are necessary for your consignments, but these column descriptions to speed up the importation of commodities. So that is the commodity tool at a glance. I'm going to go back into my consignment details now, and I'm going to progress again as a DAFM staff member as I would if I was going through the verification steps on Traces to ensure the consignment details have been entered correctly. So again, I'm just going to split my screen here to make sure all my documents are up, and I'm going to go through the next page, which is the transport page, because now, actually, one second, the final thing I have to check here, sorry, I didn't do it, and Kevin actually had deviated from my CMR. You'll see here on my CMR, I have the gross weight as 2605. He has his gross weight of 2700. If I had noticed that in reality, if I was the veterinarian or the technical staff member and I noticed that there was such a deviation in weight, I will reject this consignment, notifying the FBO that more corrections are needed on your part before I can proceed with certification. I will go through the steps of certification with this particular consignment, but I'm just going to make you aware now that if on a CMR document I had 2605 here as the gross weight, but here on the Traces web page 2700 is selected, that means this consignment must be rejected on Traces because the information on the Traces web page does not match the information I've received on my CMR. But as I said, I'm going to, because this is a training demonstration, I'm going to assume that this has been entered correctly and that I can proceed with certification. However, just because I've made reference to this, if at any stage ourselves as staff users are aware that information has been entered incorrectly, I move to the certification page. I scroll down to the very bottom. There we go. So this is the certification page. I scroll down to the bottom on my screen and you can see here the button is reject. I'd reject this consignment. Now, the issue on traces is if I reject the consignment, you as a food business operator does not get notified why it was rejected. The only information that you get on traces is on the search, the export health certificate search screen, you get notified it has been rejected. So what we have recommended to all DAFM staff is the email that we received for notification, that we respond to this email that we received for notification with the details that need amendment. So as I said, for this particular consignment, it would be that the gross weight doesn't match the CMR. I would send that to you as the FBO user so that you would be notified that is the reason for rejection. The Traces website does not have that functionality, so this is how we are going to notify you as FBO users that information has been entered incorrectly and the consignment has been rejected. However, as I said, for the purposes of this training demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and assume that all details have been entered correctly. So I'm going to go back to the consignment screen, one moment. And then the final page that I'm going to, or sorry, the second to last page that I checked through is the transport page. So again, similarly, the process is the exact same. I bring up my CMR document and I cross-reference my CMR document against the consignment details as entered on traces to ensure details have been entered correctly. Similarly, actually on this page, I can see here that the date of departure doesn't match my CMR, so I'd reject this. And the identification of the vehicle doesn't match what I have on my CMR because the transport ID has been entered here in the CMR. So I would actually, this consignment would be rejected back to the FBO so that you would have to amend these details before I could certify. However, again, I'm going to assume all of this is correct and I can move to the route page. Oh, also I saw in the, sorry for getting sidetracked, but I saw in the chat that there was questions about the seal number and the container number. These are not a required entry on the Traces webpage. You can submit a consignment for certification without the seal number and the container number having been entered. And then, as I said, I've checked this page now. It doesn't match my CMR, but it should. So I should be able to say this page has been entered correctly, and then I then move on to the route page. And then finally on the route page, because this is going through Dublin Port, there is only two points of entry. There's the exit point and the entry point. I check both of those. Again, I ensure that they match my CMR document, and once I am confident with that, that is stage one complete. Now, stage one can be complete actually if this was just a draft. So if you notified me, like I said, I had sent myself the reference number here. You will also see on the export health search page, you may have draft.ie.2021, whatever number. You may wish as the FBO user to send that draft number to your DAFM or veterinary office so that they may check the consignment details at this stage before it actually gets certified. That facility is available to you on Traces. However, that is stage one complete, which is verification of the consignment details. So then I, as a veterinarian, will move on to the certification page. Now, the certification page, the health information here and the notes here, this is only of relevance to our DAFM staff members. I will not be going over this. The reason we're talking about the veterinary page, and if you remember earlier, I made reference to a traceability document. This is an export health cert to Canada. This does not have the same level of required information as the export health certificates to GB will have. I'm going to just bring up an export health cert. We've used pork products. This consignment is for pork. So I am going to bring up, one moment now, a pork model health certificate here. Sorry, give me one moment. This is a blank pork model health cert. These are available from the DEFRA website. I would recommend all food business operators in attendance to familiarize yourselves with the export health certificates that are going to be used for the consignments that you will be generating to Great Britain for one simple reason. We cannot proceed with certification without receiving information to you to complete these certificates as DAFM staff users. As I said, you'll have seen on the Traces webpage, there was public health attestations. That is going to be filled in by DAFM staff users. The FBO has no responsibility and has no input on those attestations, the public health attestations. However, there are animal health attestations. The animal health attestations, the official veterinarian must certify that the fresh meat described in part 1, which is the commodity, the consignment, is contained or obtained in territory codes. So we have to specify the region of origin of the product, and then for this particular product, which is, as I said, it's a pork cert, you also have to specify the date of slaughter of the animals that went into producing this particular commodity. So we cannot certify as DAFM staff members unless we have that information. So what I did at the outset, if you remember, on the Traces webpage is I inserted as an attachment this traceability document. What we will need for all certification procedures is at the minimum 2 documents. The CMR, which is, as I said, the details that were entered on the Traces webpage to generate the consignment, and the traceability document. Now, I believe lots of plans have their own procedures in place for traceability, so there is no standardized traceability document. But what I would suggest is that you familiarize yourselves with the certs so that you provide to DAFM staff users a traceability document that we can go back and verify regarding the slaughter dates and dates of production as appropriate to the certificate that we will be producing. So my traceability document, I'm just going to open it here to show you, because for the pork model cert, all I would need is very little information. It will be batch number, lot number, product types generated, so that's for the commodity codes, what commodity codes were used for this particular lot. But what's of most import to me as a VI or as a DAFM staff member is the date of slaughter and date of production, because I will be entering that information in a free text box on the Traces website, and without that information I cannot certify. So that's what we want to make you aware here. Without this information we cannot proceed with certification. So it is absolutely vital that on the Traces webpage, as I said, I recommend that you use it as you upload this document as an attachment. You may also supply that information to us in an email, but we must have this information before we can proceed with certification. Without the information, we cannot do our jobs. So again, in terms of workflow, in terms of speed of process, please ensure that you endeavour to work with your veterinary office so that you can provide them all the information that they require to proceed with certification, just to speed up the entire process. As I said, this particular model health cert that I'm showing you now for Canada, the radial buttons will be entered by the veterinarian as applicable to the consignment. Because this is just a training demonstration, I'm just going to choose the top one. What occurs on Traces is the one I have chosen will appear on the cert. The ones that I have not chosen will also appear on the cert, but they will appear in, they will have a strike through them to indicate that they are not applicable. Additionally, as I showed you on the blank model cert, the blank model pork cert, there's free text boxes on Traces. There's not on this cert for Canada, but there will be the ability to enter information. So dates of slaughter will be entered in free text boxes. Where those free text boxes exist on the Traces website, the outturn, the finalized export health cert, that text will be in bold. That will notify you as once the document is printed that information has been entered on the Traces website. But once I have entered the information that is appropriate for my health certificate, I can then move down to the bottom of the screen, go choose my qualification and title, and then I submit the decision. Once I have submitted the decision, I have to enter my password like Kevin had to do when he was generating the consignment. I will select choose the same password for all subsequent signatures, and I sign the certification. So now that you see on my screen when it catches up, sorry, I can see that there's a momentary delay, my certificate has now been created. So as you can see, I can open the certificate, I can return to the search screen, or I can select the languages. So for product owned to GB, English is the only language that is necessary because we're both English-speaking countries. However, on this screen, if you would notify the vet that the product was going to France or wherever else in the world, they would select the languages as appropriate for that particular consignment. However, as I said, English is the default language selected here, and I can proceed with that going forward. So I can come down here now and choose print. When I, just so that you're all aware as well, when I select print, it doesn't actually print the document right away. What will happen is it'll open the document as a PDF file. I'm using the Microsoft Edge browser, so it's going to open for me in the Microsoft Edge browser. It will open for you in either your browser or whatever PDF reader you may choose to use. I'm just going to bring it up to bring one thing mostly to your attention. The certificate reference number. So I was working on this Traces reference number. This is the details on Traces when the consignment has been generated, so it can be saved as a draft. That get entered in box 1.2a. Box 1.2 is the certificate reference number. This is the TR.W3RF850. That is a unique code that is only generated by the Traces system once the certificate has been submitted for certification by a competent authority. So that code, the TR number, will only get applied once the certificate has been submitted for certification. As I said, all of the information that you'll see here on the cert has been transposed from the Traces website, and the only thing that I need to bring to your attention on this is the strike through again. The fact that the radial buttons that I did not select have been struck through on the actual cert. You'll see it here in the either or selections. I think my screen is caught up. Yeah, so that has been struck through. And then at the bottom of the sheet, in accordance with the Department of Agriculture's certification procedures, the veterinarian will stamp and sign these certs. Now, you can print the cert once it has been generated on the Traces website. There also, because it's a PDF file, you also have the capacity to save the certificate, because like I said, you might be saving multiple certs at once to send to your food business operator for printing so that they may be stamped and signed on location. That facility exists on Traces. You just click save and you save the file to your PC for later use. And that concludes my presentation on the certification procedures on the Traces website.